What up, fam? Welcome back to another episode of Sportside. Today we're going to be learning how to increase your vertical jump using plyometrics. And I'll take y'all along for the ride and explain a little bit more about some scientific stuff that can help you increase your vertical using plyometrics. All right, here we go! I just noticed that today is going to be the plyometrics episode, and one thing that I noticed since I started the series, I haven't even measured my vertical yet. So before we get to my vertical and actually testing it and seeing where it's at the beginning of the series, what I need to make sure is to explain to you what plyometrics are. So where plyometrics originated from, a little history lesson. There was a Soviet coach, Verkhoshansky, I think is his name, he actually popularized it because what he wanted to do is improve the athletic ability of certain athletes. And plyometrics were originally designed for people who are already highly trained or athletes or people that are already athletes so that it can improve their jumping mechanics. So he started working on plyometrics, which is depth jumps, and what he wanted to work on was short ground contact. So the reasoning behind it is because that muscle stiffness is actually going to allow it to where you're going to have more elasticity, and so you're going to be able to jump and explode a little bit faster. So a lot of athletes worldwide have always practiced plyometrics. Now plyometrics are very helpful, especially in the vertical jump, and that's one of the reason why in my program I'm doing 2 days of strength training and 1 day of plyometrics, is because at the beginning I want to make sure that I'm working on all the strength training so that I have the rate of force development, and then as I get near my goal I'm going to be working on plyometrics a little more to where I'm getting better with the balance, getting used to that short ground contact. So now we're going to go up on the wall and measure my vertical leap. Here we go! I'm actually going to use this pin, and it's magnetic. If you look at it, it's magnetic. And then I'm actually going to place it up there, and that's actually what's going to measure exactly how high it is. Here we go! So we need to get it up in the 40s if we really want to be able to dunk. Now that I've measured my pathetic vertical leap, I think what I'm about to do is I'm about to do some box jumps. Great things that you can use box jumps for is I like to use them a lot on my squat days just to warm up my hips, because if I'm going to be using the rate of force development, is going to require a lot of quick movement from my hips, so I need to make sure that my hips and joints are nice and loose and nothing is too tight. Or even if you're an athlete and you do your plyometrics wrong and your form is off, you run the risk of hurting your joints or hurting your knees. And so by doing these box jumps, it allows me to work on the technique a little bit more. And if you see, when I land, I try to make sure that I land on my heels, and I try to make sure that my toes are pointing, my big toe is pointed up. So that's what allows the dorsiflex and allows the tibialis anterior to protect my knee as I go. Another rule of thumb when you're doing these box jumps, if you're hearing the sound of landing on the box like really loud, that means you are coming down with way too much force, which is not good for your knees. So this is why I suggest that you try and make it to where you're landing on your heels softly. So you jump up and then you try to land very softly. And you keep practicing that, and your box jumps is going to get that much better. Now that we got the box jumps going, now we need to make sure that we start hitting those Verkhoshansky depth jumps so that we can improve our plyometrics and get our vertical leap that much higher. All right, so here we go. What you really want to start out with, you want to start out with a very low weight, low height when you're doing these depth jumps, and then you're going to, as you gradually get higher, you're actually going to be doing higher, you're going to be doing less and less reps. So right now at the beginning, I've just decided to do about 8, you know, just really to test it out. So the main thing that you really want to focus on when you're doing these depth jumps is as little time on the ground as possible. Granted, even though I just told you that when you land on the box, you want to land on your heels, when you're hitting the ground just to immediately jump up, it's totally fine for you to jump on the balls of your feet, because that's where you're actually going to create that quick ground contact and then immediately jump up. And when you're getting off the box also, you want to make sure that you don't jump off the box, because that's really hard on your joints, especially if you're an athlete. You're already pretty rough on your joints, especially your knees. So when you come off the box, you want to just step off the box very lightly. You don't want to just jump off of it. That's how a lot of people start to sustain injuries over time doing these jumps, is because when they get to the high box, they just jump off the high box like it's nothing. But no, you want to save it for your training, and you want to make sure that you're not too fatigued, because also if you're fatigued, that's when you're more likely to slip up in form, and that's when you're more likely to get injured. So we don't want to get injured. We want to keep working on these box jumps. So now we're going to increase the height, and I'm actually going to start jumping a little bit higher, but I'm going to do less reps as I go. Let's flip the script. Yeah, now that I'm starting to go up a little bit higher, I don't have to do nearly as many reps. So I'm 4 now, so I'm actually going to take it up a notch. And the box that I'm jumping on, that's the same height that I'm actually going to be aiming for to drop from and then immediately jump. So I'm actually going to do like four sets of 2 or 3, and then I'm actually going to move on to the next exercise. But this is one of the ways that I'm able to challenge myself, because this is going to be a much higher height. You actually want to do a lot less reps, because you don't, like, if you're fatigued, that's when you run the risk into injury, and you don't want to push it too hard. So those are really tough. It's going to demand a lot out of your body, so you want to make sure that you're doing very low reps. So if you're actually getting really high up, then you might actually just even consider doing sets of just 1. So but there, I just decided to do 3 sets of 4, and that's enough for today in terms of the depth jumps. Now we're going to go to the next one, which is a very interesting one. I don't even know what this exercise is actually called, but I like to think of it as it's similar to a pool jump when you're jumping out of the pool, and the force which requires a lot of force coming from your hip. What this helps with is that you're going to be doing a lot of hip jump. You're going to be able to push so much more power through your hips at a faster rate, and that's how it's going to allow you to jump a little bit higher. And in this exercise, the thing you need to notice is the arm action. So I'm bringing my arms all the way up, swinging them back, and then when they come back, all that momentum, I'm using it, shifting it towards my hips, and then I'm jumping up and landing into a squat form. So it may look like I'm doing a broad jump from my knees, but what I'm really actually trying to work on is just the explosiveness from that angle. And the more you keep doing this, as I'm doing 4 sets of 10, as you get to maybe 5 or 6, you're going to start feeling the fatigue. Your hip flexors are going to start getting a little bit, like they're going to start burning, and that's how you know you're actually working it right. So this is the first progression that I'm actually working on, and then the next. Now that I just did the second variation of it, I'm going to try to see if I can even do the third variation. Third variation, this time, I'm actually trying to land on 1 foot as soon as I jump up. So instead of actually jumping all the way up, I'm actually just jumping and landing on 1 foot, which requires a lot of unilateral strength. The good thing that we worked on those split squats the other day. So keep working on those split squats throughout the summer. This is going to get better. So let's just see how I do. See, on that last one, I almost ate it. Sometimes it's good to just know your limits. So I haven't quite developed that aspect yet. I'll keep working on my unilateral strength by doing split squats, and I'll keep doing those. I really like those just because if you don't have a pull, it's a good way to actually still get that same strength, because you really need that lower body strength to be able to jump up so high. So it helps to do those, and that's one way that you can actually practice those pull jumps without needing a pull. So that I had originally said that I wasn't going to do any strength stuff. I kind of want to do some more box jumps. I'm going to be doing weighted seated box jumps. The reason why I'm doing weighted seated box jumps is just because it gets me, so from one end there I was coming off my knees. In this end I'm actually going to be coming from a sitting position, and I'm just going to rock a little bit and then just jump up onto the box. And I'm actually just going to take probably like a 30 or 40 pounder, and I'm just going to do 4 sets of 5, and that's going to be it. We're going to call it a day. All right, so let's get to it. The aim on those box jumps at the end, the seated weighted box jumps, is I'm trying to make sure that I'm coming from a point which is very similar to the squat hole, where you're finding yourself all the way at the bottom. And it's like, if you really want to get stronger, want to increase your vertical, you need to make sure that your depth is much lower. And so this is one of the ways that for me, I can get used to just that lower depth, getting more glute activation, and start driving in more power. So that's just my way of adding in a little bit of weights. But the plyometrics that I have done all day today have already been tough. So if we're to recap, let me take a second. That was a great workout. To recap, basically everything that we did today, the first exercise was just a warm-up. So I just did some non-weighted, simple box jumps from the floor to a simple box just to get the hips loosened up. And then after that, I started doing depth jumps. What you want to start with when you're doing depth jumps, you want to start first at a very low height, jumping into a slightly higher box, and then eventually the boxes are going to start reaching the same level of height. As they start to reach the same height, what you want to do is actually decrease the amount of reps and not make it too many sets. And then the third thing that I was able to do, non-swimming pool, swimming pool jumps, but all it is I'm starting off from my knees and then jumping straight into a squat position. Then I went to the second variation where I'm jumping from my knees to squat and then immediately jumping up where I can raise my knee as high as possible. Basically, I'm trying to make my knees touch my chest when I jump up. And then the third variation is where you're going from your knees to jumping up to landing on one foot. There, you could tell I still struggle and I got a ways to go. But as this series keeps going on, everything is going to be just fine, and I think that I'm going to be able to land those more comfortably. And I can definitely see that those take a lot out of you, but also help you in terms of building your coordination so that it can make it easier for you to dunk. Now that we're done with all that, did the double seated box jump, now we can actually go home. We can call it a day and make sure that we get our protein, make sure we get our nutrition, make sure we get our rest. But that's it for the workout. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. Thanks for checking me out here on Sportside, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace.